Greetings and welcome to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon, and in this video I'll be taking a look at 3, or should I say 4, of the upcoming Forge World miniature releases for Necromunda. Before I get started though, please do like, share, subscribe, and check out the Patreon as well to support me further. Now, I may be a little bit biased here as I'm kind of the Necromunda guy, but I will say, hand on heart, that I do believe that Forge World Necromunda miniatures are the single best range that Games Workshop has ever produced. I'm sure many of you will agree with me on this, but all of the hired guns and Dramatis Personae so far in the Forge World range for Necromunda are ridiculously beautiful. The level of detail, the grimdark, it is pure 40k in its absolute finest, and it's exactly what I love and I'm so passionate about with this hobby. Now, there are 3 new releases coming up that I thought I'd highlight. There are 4 miniatures here to talk about on the Warhammer community. So if you go on the Warhammer community lately, you will see a load of hubbub about new squats coming out. I've already done a little video on those guys, but here we're going to talk about 3 of the sets of Dramatis Personae / agents / hangers-on that we're going to get in the next few months for Necromunda. I suppose we've got to start with what I think is the most exciting of these 3 releases so far, and that is the first Abyssal Ferryman team. Now, I have done a video on Abyssal Ferryman teams in the Hive Secundus setting. You can find that on my channel. Go and check that out. And I've also done a video on this duo that we're going to be talking about now, which is Madryc Hellbane and Lugrun. And these are Dramatis Personae Abyssal Ferryman that you can use in place of your regular Abyssal Ferryman in your Hive Secundus Underhells campaign. Now, I'm just going to go straight out and say it. I do also believe that Lugrun here, the Ogryn in this picture, is the nicest Games Workshop Necromunda miniature, I think, ever. That's a bold statement, but I just think it is absolutely incredible, and I am so excited to get my hands on this. Where do we start with this guy? When I first saw the book, I looked at this illustration and I thought, this guy looks ace. And then I read a little bit more about him. I did a video on him as well, some of the lore too. And these guys are just, they're just so good. But the miniature for Lugrun particularly is just magnificent. Just gaze upon it just for a moment. Just a moment of silence for Lugrun right now. There. Just bathe in all its glory. Whoever sculpted this is an absolute legend. I want to kiss you. Just look at it. Where to begin? The level of detail on this is above and beyond what you normally see, but it's not cluttered in a way that you can get with some miniatures. It's the pose is fantastic. The weapons look amazing. The skull sort of mask on this guy kind of makes him look a little bit like an overgrown, chonky corpse grinder, which is a great thing, by the way, because the corpse grinder aesthetic is also amazing. But just everything about it, the armor plating on the front with the big ring in the middle. I love the fact that these guys are covered in little watches and clocks and stuff, because as we know, in Hive Secundus, time is right out the window. Things skip forward and go back in time and whatnot. So the fact that they've got all these little doodads on them is just really cool. Little, bit of fluffiness there that I really like. The weapons in question, hook, line, and sinker, I believe they're called. A giant sort of pike, which I imagine Lugrun uses from the back of their, custom vehicle to pull Gene Stealer cultists into pieces with that giant hook there. He's also got in the other hand what looks like a sort of iron sort of misshapen claw, and wrapped around the fist there he's got the actual hook there as well on the end. Just an awesome looking pose. I love the chunkiness of it. It has real weight and heft, and it looks magnificent. I love the boiler suit with the sort of pinstripes on it. I've got to say, and I've always said this about a lot of the Forge World miniatures, I don't usually like the paint schemes. I do feel like, and I'm not saying I'm a better painter in any way, because I'm certainly not. I think these guys are fantastic painters, but, and this is going back to everything Games Workshop, really, apart from John Blanche, God bless him. But I will say that for a universe that, in the grim dark of the far future, there is only war, Everything is far too brightly coloured generally, and I must say that things are never grimy and dirty enough for my taste in Necromunda. And the same applies here to a certain extent, but I do think the colours used on these miniatures are fantastic in the paint job. They're just a little bit too bright and a bit too clean for me. So that's Lugrun. I mean, he's got so much extra stuff all over him, loads of little, little doodads and, just so much detail. I love everything about it. There's not a single weak part of this miniature that I can find. So far, it is the perfect Necromunda miniature, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Now let's look at Madryc Hellbane. I'm getting really strong Han Solo and Chewie vibes actually here. I'm sure when I've said that, you'll probably see it too, but I imagine these guys kind of behave a little bit like Han and Chewie. We've got Lugrun, who's just a big brute who just kills stuff, and you've got Madryc Hellbane, who's quite an interesting gunslinger sort of guy. Is the model what I expected? I suppose there was no illustration in the book, so it's hard to say, but he's got that Archeo dueling pistol on the hip. I do like the sort of pose that they've tried to create here. I'm just not sure whether it's been pulled off as well as it could be, especially next to Lugrun, because I think anything next to Lugrun here is not going to just look as good, and that's quite simple. The other thing that I'm not sure about with this miniature, I do love the sort of head cap thing, as well as the continuity in the boiler suits and the sort of doodads they've got hanging around them. I like everything about the miniature. I'm not sure about, again, I think the paint job is not necessarily doing it justice here, particularly with that weird sort of awkward smile he's got. I'm not very good at painting faces, but I'm pretty sure that I'd make it just look a little bit less comedic, I suppose, with the facial expression there. I think that might just be down to the painting style there, but both of these miniatures work very well together. There's lots of continuity that joins them together, but I have to say Lugrun is by far the better miniature in this too. So if you want to find out more about Lugrun and Madryc Hellbane, I'm not going to go into too much detail. Really all I want to talk about is the models here, because they are just magnificent. But go and check out my other videos. First one on Abyssal Ferryman and the other one on Madryc and Lugrun themselves and how they actually work in the game, because they're pretty damn good in your Under Hell's campaigns. The next one, and something that I've seen lots of people do conversions on and stuff, is the Servant of the Silent Ones. Now, this is a Delac house agent that only works for Delac, and I've got to say, I'm actually surprised that Forge World have actually done a miniature for this. I thought this was probably going to be one of the ones that just sort of got lost and went to the wayside a little bit, because I think in my head, this is quite a hard miniature to do. However, again, Forge World, hats off to you. You have knocked it out of the park with this one. This is fantastic. And I have to say, the Servant of the Silent Ones is definitely one of my favourite agents. Not only a Delac, one of my favourite gangs in the game, but this agent, now we can actually have it on the table and field it in all its glory. But look at this miniature. It is just beautiful. I can't say what size the base is, but I'm assuming it's quite large because, the Servant of the Silent Ones itself, the rules and stuff, again, you can go and check out my other video on this guy, specifically how he works in game. He's pretty damn good, by the way, and very unusual compared to everything else you can get. But basically what we have here is a giant cyber fluke worm or similar, a huge sort of metal, many-teethed, many-rowed mouth with what looks to be an Orlok arm hanging out of it. Now, I love to see Orloks in pain and misery. So apologies to the 5 Orlok fans out there, but the Orlok arm hanging out of the mouth there is just the icing on the cake for this. I actually think the paint job's pretty good here. Again, it's a bit too bright for me. The metal is a little bit too vivid and bright. I'd probably go with more of a rusted, disgusting sort of look to this, but again, cannot wait to get my hands on it and actually paint it myself in my own sort of dirty, grimy, tetanus sort of style. What more is there to say about this miniature though? It is very unusual. We haven't seen anything like this in the 40k universe, really. It's not like anything else, and it is just really horrific and beautiful in all its glory. It is pure grimdark here, and I love the sort of cyber element of it with combined with all those fleshy parts and stuff. It's just damn sick, really. That's the Servant of the Silent Ones. Again, this is Forge World. These are all Forge World. The last one of the 3 articles here, and this one came out like a month or 2 ago, is Sybilant Servos. Again, I did a video on this guy fairly recently that you can go and check out as well. Sybilant Servos is basically a Whisper Merchant times 10. He is really good in the game. So good, in fact, that I'm thinking about using him as an outcast leader, perhaps at some stage. The miniature, Does it live up to my expectations? I'm not quite sure here. I do like it, but I think the illustration of it, it was hard to imagine how he was going to look in miniature form. I think, you know, side on with that sort of big head and sort of mask, it's pretty close to the illustration, but it just doesn't capture the really, really, really grimdark feel that I'd imagined. He looks like a typical streamer, someone on Twitch playing Overwatch or something. No disrespect there, but this guy clearly lives in his mum's basement and just eats Cheeto. He's covered in Cheeto dust all the time, and I can't unsee it now I've seen it. But he's a really cool character. I think, again, though, the paint job doesn't do it justice. I think the chair could be a hell of a lot more rusted and just messed up and dirty. I'm not sure how, I can't actually see clearly here how it's actually joined to the base, because I think it's supposed to be sort of hovering, but it looks like at the back there it's joined to the base somehow on little wheels or something. I'm not actually sure here. Comment down below if you know what's going on here. But it is quite a cluttered miniature. There's a lot going on. He's got these multiple screens and a servo skull behind him as well. But again, I think, as is the case with all of these Forge World miniatures, when you actually get them in hand and you start having a look at them at all the angles, they're far better than they look in these pictures, I have to say. He does remind me a little bit of Professor Stephen Hawking, RIP, who I've actually met on a couple of occasions on a separate note. I've helped him in and out of the lift of the record store I used to work in, and I can confirm his chair is just as big as this, if not bigger. It was huge. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Just my excitement and passion for Necromunda is alive and well. I'm never getting bored of this. It is... They just knock it out of the park. Every single time something comes out, I'm always just flabbergasted by how good it is. But yeah, really, the cream of the crop here for me is Lugrun. Lugrun is just, oh my God, just Lugrun. Lugrun! Gaze upon it in all its glory, and I'll be back with another video real soon. Peace out.